Oh, no, I love it. It's so wonderful. That, you know what, you're making yourself, oh, we are live. Hello.
Hello, Anna.
Hi, Stephen. Well, I think I'm going to jump in. We're now live on Facebook, and my name is Anna San Juan, and I'm really happy to be with you here, streaming from the New York Open Center. The New York Open Center has been a beloved community home for the conscious community and for people who are interested in studying, practicing, playing, and training in personal development, spiritual practice, and the healing arts. The New York Open Center was founded in 1984. So 36 years later, we are still strong and here with you and adjusting to the COVID scenario by going live with all of our programs. So one of the blessings of this is that we now welcome an international community to all of our programs and live events, which means that we have even a better opportunity to meet our kindred brothers and sisters across the globe on topics of the healing arts, spiritual practice, and personal development. So from the Open Center, I really want to welcome deeply Stephen Post, who has been a longtime faculty of the Open Center, a distinguished scholar and practitioner of Feng Shui. And Stephen will be leading it's a weekly class in July. It's 3 sessions on Thursdays. And the topic is Feng Shui and how to use it to calm and thrive, especially during times of crisis, which we're in right now. So a little introduction on Stephen. I guess, let me say first a teaser, which is, you can see that Stephen is sitting in a very interesting place. He's sitting on top of a mountain in California and broadcasting and being with us there. And at the end of our discussion, he's going to show us a look from the mountaintop, and it's a very special place to you. You've shared with me, so that'll be fun to get to a little bit later.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So more proper introduction to Stephen is that you are a Feng Shui consultant and teacher. You are a scholar, and you have been practicing since 1970. You are considered the Feng Shui's walking encyclopedia, and you were taught or mentored by Professor Lin Yun, who is a spiritual master and who is credited for bringing Feng Shui to the United States. So if my math is right, since 1970, that's 50 solid years of being a leader of Feng Shui for the world. So thank you for that. And you've been teaching at the Open Center for how long of that time?
I believe we began our 3-year professional program in 1985, and that was preceded by a camp that we gave. So since about 1985, we have had about a 25-year run in a 3-year professional training in Feng Shui at the Open Center.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, can we take just one step back, and can you share with us from your perspective, what is Feng Shui?
Very well. I often try to define Feng Shui uniquely when asked that question, but I'll start with the tried and true. Feng Shui literally means wind and water, and it comes from a poem which gave us the word Feng Shui from about 1700 years ago, a poem that described desirable living conditions. A couplet: the winds are mild, the sun is warm. The first word is wind, feng. The water is clear, the trees are lush, water is shui. So Feng Shui refers to an intuitive and practical art that seeks to create an optimal environment, an environment where people are brought together in unity with the place they live in and with the universe. And through that process of unity, connecting people, place, and universe, our intended outcomes, according to the given mission, include well-being and wish fulfillment. And so Feng Shui is an art both of adjusting the environment and, in my root tradition, also of adjusting ourselves to achieve those goals.
Wow. So I'm hearing the environment, like our home, our gardens, our offices, but I'm also hearing you say adjust ourselves.
Yes, we too are our environments rather than static and unchanging. And typically, if we both adjust the key environments of our lives, especially our homes, possibly our workplaces, and also adjust ourselves, the two together typically lead to the strongest results.
So what are some of those results?
Well, Feng Shui is among the broadest and widest professions in terms of its purview. And so the results would be dependent on what people want, what they request, what the mission is. My work tends to be mission-based. The Modern Book of Feng Shui is a famous how-to guide and general introduction, but expert Feng Shui is really based on the individual, what you, Anna, want, what you want to create in your life, what your problems are, what you seek to achieve. And so that could include more money, achieving relational bliss, supporting your children, finding a job, and it really extends to the entire range of life. We typically receive payment in red envelopes as both a form of protecting the practitioner who's given deep secrets that affect an individual's life stream, and also the red envelopes allow us the opportunity to program the outcome as we sleep on them. And so one day I was sleeping on some red envelopes, and one set of red envelopes had to do with helping someone die and to go to a good outcome. And the other had to do with helping someone conceive a child. So from birth to death, and from individual comfort in the deep sense of that word, to be strengthened, to be consoled, all the way to the fulfillment of mundane purposes, dealing with a negotiation, even a lawsuit, selling a property, finding a mate. The entire range of life makes Feng Shui both an incredibly demanding profession, but also so full of inspiration and evolution that it's been an extraordinary process to hear people's secrets and to find ways to help them address their issues and what they want in a successful way. And to do that, there are a huge range of tools. And especially in my work, as I think we'll touch on, there are many core principles that bear on this and many ways of implementing those principles toward the goals people have.
Wow. So for all of us who are in a very important transition right now, you know, the crisis, the virus is touching us all in very different ways. And there's a lot of possibility in how we handle it. So I'm hearing you say that feng shui or feng shui?
Feng Shui.
Feng shui.
Feng Shui.
So feng shui is very customizable. It really can touch us all and empower us to meet all of our unique needs.
Yes, and of course, without ignoring the mundane and the practical, which in some cases, in many cases, is more important than the exotic and transcendental.
Right.
So without ignoring what is fundamental and practical, we can use Feng Shui to tip the balance in our favor.
Wow. So I would love to dive into a very important blog you wrote, but before we go there, because that's where we're going to get into the meat of things, I'm very curious how you, a man in the United States of America, 50 years ago, how did you get started in Feng Shui? You are a master now. So what started this for you?
My story begins as a little boy in the Bronx, walking down the block to my aunt's home. I came upon a vacant lot. I saw the sun shining on the ground and had a classic extroverted mystical experience, kind of eating the world, all is one. And at that point, I decided I would create a language which would not only describe that experience, but try to embody it. And in a way, that's Feng Shui. That's the translation of transcendent experience into a form that it can, with which it can be understood and utilized. So in a way, I've been doing this since 4 or 5. That's one key moment. And here we're talking in the fire lookout atop Mount Tamalpais, the home of my heart. I left New York City specifically to visit this mountain or to return to this mountain in 1970, and then became lookout here. And I still have an apartment in New York that I've been unable to return to, and a home in San Francisco. And so the deep awareness of life in New York City, life in my home in San Francisco, as juxtaposed with this place, which is the spiritual home of my heart, where I spend more time than anyone else alive at, is an interesting juxtaposition. Being confined at home and making the most and the best of that has certainly, for me, been informed by the vast space that surrounds us, which the audience will have a chance to get a glimpse of a little bit later. Wow. And so to continue to answer your question, having that experience, I was aware that there was something beyond the normal and visible and tangible. I was awakened through experiences of the death of an uncle and seeing a black hawk exit his mouth, the form that the soul takes in old Egypt, something I didn't know about. And a deep interest in religion and mythology. Joseph Campbell, my high school hero in my 30s, became a teacher and a friend and a supporter of Feng Shui. And I was also a first generation hippie, and in the summer of love, had occasion to travel 14,000 miles around the country, visiting this mountain, falling in love with it, returning 3 years later to live here, and then discovering the fire lookout position and getting that job and being able to continue as lookout for all these years. But when I first became fire lookout, I made a commitment to learn whatever I could about Feng Shui, geomancy, earth mysteries, and the like. And so I made a formal commitment at that point, and after some years of scholarly work, began teaching some introductory courses. And then I heard there was a master of Chinese Feng Shui giving a class, and it was His Holiness Professor Lin Yun, and I was in his first class. When we bowed to each other, I knew I'd found a life master, and he nurtured my interests, turned what was a passion into a profession, and I've helped turn that passion into a profession that people can utilize both for their own betterment and even in professional development. And so it's been an amazing, glorious ride for me, where Feng Shui has been a door that has opened my interest to such a variety of subjects. Feng Shui and the Great Goddess, one of my deep interests. Feng Shui and Judaism. Feng Shui and parenting. So many different topics, far more than I could even begin to list, have made Feng Shui the doorway to helping myself and helping others. Certainly one of the most important ones.
I think it's a really important story that you're sharing, because if a little boy in the Bronx I'm guessing somewhere in the late 50s, somewhere in that time,
Yes.
If a little boy in the Bronx looking at an empty parking lot can have an awakening that guides you not only to a passion and a profession, but to really serving something much bigger than yourself, and helping thousands of people along the way understand their potential. I think that everybody watching this, including myself, also has the same possibilities. So you're quite inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, there's a saying that Professor Lin has, the most difficult sutra, a sutra is a Buddhist religious text, the most difficult sutra to read is the one we keep in our own homes. And so how to bring these universal principles, these transcendental ideas into reality is far less simple than just the wish to do so. So my course does concern how to make practical these rather loftily expressed goals.
Mm,
And it's been a great honor to help myself and to help others with that all these years.
that's fantastic. Well, that sounds like a perfect segue to your blog. So there's a blog that is written, that's published on opencenter.org. And it was, you gifted it to us really in light of the crisis that's happening. And it's called Feng Shui During Crisis, how to thrive and how to achieve calmness during this crisis using Feng Shui. And it sounds like the container of the blog is the 7 great secrets of life. Now
Mhm.
that sounds like a big deal to be talking about. And while we're not going to have the time in this conversation to go through all 7, and I think you wanted to add some more, so there's more to them.
Well, there are really 9 that I thought of, but I wrote down 7.
Okay, great. So maybe what we'll do is we'll focus on a handful of them and again, provide more and more teasers for people because you are the encyclopedia. But one of them that you mentioned is loving kindness. And so now I want to just bring us to the place of you're offering these secrets of life and you're offering them as truths and principles that we can use right now to support ourselves and our loved ones. So loving kindness, I know that as a Buddhist term. Could you tell us how that relates to Feng Shui?
It's interesting that in this period of stay at home, I and my wife, the remarkable oboist Brenda Schumann Post, living together and in a loving relationship all these years, have experienced, I think, some challenges and some opportunities in being so close together in this period. A parallel to the most difficult sutra to read is the one you keep in your own home, is the German proverb, Strasse Engel, Haus Teufel, street angel, house devil.
Oh,
and and I'm sure that so many of us have experienced not just the joy of companionship or the joy of coming to unity if we're without physical companionship with our own subconscious and unconscious as a support, that we've experienced this in connection with issues and problems and annoyances. We may love our children, but they certainly can be annoying. The same can be said for our partners and other loved ones. And so my goal in this period relative to loving kindness has been to turn lemons not into lemonade, but into divine nectar. And so from the Dharma or Buddhist standpoint, I've been so aware and doing so much, even new work, on the importance of loving kindness, both for leading to wisdom being actually implemented, and also its ability to purify what needs purifying in us. At the same time, I've been so aware from the Western standpoint of the deep importance of relationship and of love as an ideal inspiring the highest. The Buddha walked the middle way. The Western grail finder, Parsifal, has a name that means to pierce the valley, to go through the middle. The grail was brought down by the neutral angels who didn't take sides in the war between God and Lucifer.
wow.
Um,
That's
and so love can itself be the impetus to transform ourselves, to reduce the negatives, to reduce our insanity into a level of relative sanity. And so I have found loving kindness to be key in this period. And in terms of methods that I'll teach that might bear on loving kindness, one is the very famous heart calming method, which calms the heart, pacifies the mind. Another, the inhale exhale method, which helps us remove negative emotional factors. And also a method called the 6-stage chi improvement method that lifts our chi, that makes it more rising, so that rather than being depressed or pushed down or stressed, we can open, we can rise, we can hopefully soar. So just, those are three that come to mind that bear on loving kindness.
So what you're inviting us to know is that Feng Shui actually can be the application of these three exercises with the intention of loving kindness. That actually is Feng Shui.
Yes, it is in our so-called black sect Feng Shui tradition. Many other traditions simply focus on the environment to a
Okay.
greater degree, and we do as well. But even the most basic of Feng Shui principles, like the commanding position, having your bed or desk not in direct line with the door, able to see the door, having a wide viewing area, will naturally give the opportunity to take an incoming input and respond with a degree of calm and control and awareness. And so in particular, I'm looking forward in this class to giving guidance on how to make the traditionally three most important things in your home: how you enter. In Judaism, the home is defined as the door. The great Talmudic scholar, I'm also a recoverer of Jewish geomancy. The Talmudic scholar Rabbah said, and when asked, what's the significance of thy house? He said, it's the way thou enterest. So the door is a mouth of chi. It lets the world in. What
Okay.
can you do with your door? What can you do with your bed? The bed and how you sleep is remarkable. One of the things I'm doing in this class is teaching something that's very, very rarely taught, what's called a secret within a secret, how to awaken the God of your bed, the God of your desk. And this touches on the shamanic and animistic dimension of these 7 core principles.
Hmm.
And so door, bed, and how you cook, which relates especially to the source of your food, which for most of us is our life in the world.
Wow.
Each of those 3 topics will get some very unique and special treatment. And those are the typically 3 most important things in the home. So I'm hopeful of conveying not only ordinary methods, but special methods as regards those.
So not to over connect, but am I hearing that the way that we handle our door, our bed, and our cooking amplifies our giving and receiving of something like loving kindness, the energies of loving kindness?
I would say so. That might be an especially apt, if radical, way of putting what I proposed. Yes, I agree.
Right, right. Because it seems like you're creating passage, you're creating flow.
Yes, but of course, what you do, opening a door, literally to energy, also relates with why you're doing it, what your intention is. And so it's not as simple as creating a simple positive conditioning where, while results of a positive nature may automatically flow from that, if we connect it with our own deepest instincts, with not only um, uh, the Buddhist idea of no solid self, but with the bigger us, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, all put together. What
Right.
the Tibetans, especially the Burn tradition, call your la, your soul, then the effect of that kind of environmental adjustment is even further augmented.
Wow. That sounds like a very mystical, alchemical synergy.
Newsweek once published a picture of me in their business section with the caption, Feng Shui Merchant Post, mystical yet practical. The practical is my concern in this class. Mystical, sure,
Right.
but mystical made into good food that we can digest and eat and that nourishes us.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to drop into one of the other great secrets of life. You just did mention it. You were talking about the bigger self.
Yes.
And I know, tell me a little bit more about that and how it relates to Feng Shui, and how we could maybe even walk away from this class, this section, this interview, this talk, and apply an understanding of our bigger self.
In the class, I will be talking about this dimension of the bigger self. Maybe preceding that would be a comment of the core truth that the Buddha himself taught, his radical innovation,
Mm.
his affirmation that if we look for a solid self that we can grasp, and say, this is Anna, this is Stephen. We don't find that. We encounter a process whereby through the sequence of perception, what are called the five heaps or aggregates or collections of experience that we use all the time. I see you. It's not me. That's form. I have a primitive emotional reaction. That's feeling. I flesh it in. That's impulse. With perception, there's a watcher, an ego. And then I have a consciousness. I'm here. You're there in New York. We're separate. That's one thing. We don't have a solid self, but we do have a bigger self. And the way I relate this in the class, I'll raise the topic, but I will not teach specific ways of befriending the bigger self, because I think it's a little bit out of sequence and stages. However, in talking about your bed, how to relate to your dreams, how to condition better sleep, how to open the way so that your sleep is restorative, much as in the ancient world, people would go to a temple to incubate, to sleep there, and to get divine forces helping them. That will be part of the class. So there'll be a kind of indirect approach to this bigger us.
Okay.
And it's a subject that's fascinated me from many standpoints, both from the standpoint of Western psychoanalysis. A great doctor named Georg Grodek gave the idea of the it, or bigger self, to Freud, who thanked Grodek and always admired Grodek, but reduced it to the more limited idea of the id, and how to engage that bigger self, which really runs the show. Does the conscious Anna control everything? Of course not. Your subconscious, your unconscious is much more powerful than just the conscious. So the three together are one way of expressing something about the bigger self, and how to make friends with them, how to let your dreams be more an open channel to fulfill your hopes rather than to confound your experience is certainly part of this class. So there'll be a kind of indirect approach there.
Fantastic. Another one of your 7 great secrets of life has to do with movement, wisdom, and energy. And
Yes.
when you had mentioned this to me before, you mentioned about getting stuck, how to
Yes.
get unstuck. And that seems like something we're all maybe on a daily basis kind of wrestle with.
Maybe moment to moment.
Yeah.
We have struggling minds and destructive minds much of the time. And when it comes to movement, wisdom, and energy, for all these decades, I've been using that term as one of 3 elemental ideas in Feng Shui. And it really relates to the dimension of relating movement with wisdom, which is expressed in the Greek name of the great goddess originally of Egypt and then of the Greco-Roman world, Isis. Isis is really a Greek word, which means movement and wisdom as one. And that theme of movement, wisdom, and energy also opens the door to the study of qi. And in Feng Shui, we want qi to gather, but we also want what is called tong qi, let the qi flow. And if the qi flows and is properly gathered, that flowing qi is an expression of movement that can condition an amplified experience of space, a kinder, sweeter environment, and also if we can learn how not to be stuck in our own bodies and let the qi of our channels and the qi of our organs and the qi of our expression in the world flow, that is also a tremendous advantage. And I'm going to teach, my first career was the study of walking as a path. And I'm teaching one special method that really relates to this feeling of letting the qi flow and even goes beyond it, called heart-mind walking, a method I learned from my main internal Chinese Kung Fu master, Sifu George Shu, from Shini Luha, heart-mind boxing, where you walk, but you walk in a way where you're going beyond your physical body and focusing on outside. And that way, if you learn to do that, you get ahead of yourself, meaning your will is ahead of your chi, ahead of your physical. So that turns movement into movement forward, into progress in our lives. So such a simple physical methodology as walking in that special manner, which I'll teach, opens the way to not being stuck and develops the habit of going forward.
So Stephen, along those lines, what is a way that I can move, or all of the viewers and myself in our home can help move chi throughout our home? Like, is there something that we should know about how we place furniture, mirror, use colors? Could you give us one or two tips right now that we could walk away and apply?
Yes. Well, I already mentioned the commanding position, which is absolutely critical for the most important seating and the position of your bed, the position of your desk, if possible, the position of your stove. But let's say your range top positions you so that your back is to the door. And so you're not in a commanding position. You can easily be startled. Some of that startle quality can go into the food. It is not as productive, and let alone, since the stove relates to public life, of its impact on being taken by surprise, not being in control of one's public life. And then, if we have such a situation, well, you could move or you could renovate, but you might also make use of a methodology called the method of minor additions, the Shetzifa, the method of adding a little bit. And in this case, mirrors could be used. In the Modern Book of Feng Shui, I list 14 or 15 different ways we use mirrors. When my son, who's now 26, was newborn, I asked Professor Lin, what about mirrors in babies' rooms? He answered, I'll be happy to answer that, Stephen, but first enumerate all the other ways we use mirrors, the origin of those 14 or 15 methods in the Modern Book of Feng Shui. But the important thing to know is what you do to condition the mirror. If you put a mirror behind the stove so that it's a rear view mirror, you're in essence simulating the commanding position. You cannot be surprised. But if you know as well how to program the mirror, you can also program the mirror such that in the mirror you see more burners, double my burners on the range top, double my money. And so such a simple adjusting tool as the mirror, if used with sophistication and if used in a way that properly empowers or reinforces, but really a better word might be programs the mirror to do the right job, then that simple mirror might greatly improve your career. Not only will you not be startled, not only might you engender situations that create more money, but other benefits beyond that could be achieved. And I think I will include that methodology, even though it's not on the list of techniques, in this class, because the participants need to know that to make the best use of what I will give them. That's called the 3 secret reinforcements.
That's fantastic. That sounds very empowering.
Literally, yes.
Very much. I'm just going to be hungry to ask for another tip. What would be something else that you would say that our viewers can turn around and apply in the heart of our day in COVID?
What's an area of life or something that would serve you personally?
I love that. I probably think that I take too much responsibility on for the welfare of the different people in my life, especially right now. I spend a lot of time thinking about and caring for and worrying about people and clients.
Yes. So what you're talking about probably goes beyond the ability to turn it into a simple tip, but let me explain that that would be considered in the area of adjusting your chi of earth. So characterologically, the range of the chi of earth is the range as between extreme selfishness and extreme selflessness. Someone who is very selfless may easily have the spirit of the match. They burn themselves up for others. Fire creates earth. And then they suffer from burnout. And so for an individual like this, I would give you a method that's fairly complex and I think goes beyond our ability to get into it in detail, but to point out that it's important to balance giving and receiving. And to achieve that balance, there are personal chi adjustment methods. And of course, one could address this in the environmental domain with color. And so one could reduce levels of earth chi with an appropriate color or strengthen them. However, just to be accurate, it may be excessive, but there's a difference between astrological elemental chi, characterological elemental chi, environmental elemental chi. I don't mean to jumble them
No, sure,
in my answer.
yeah, you're making distinctions that are relevant. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm watching the time. I'm going to ask for one more tip.
Okay.
And then I know that we have a secret that we're going to see the mountain. But before we go there, let me think about, I want to presence people who have spent a lot of time indoors. And is there a way to use Feng Shui to create more spaciousness indoors?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is a methodology which combines Taoist techniques as well as the Buddhist ideas of what are called deity yoga. There is a meditational game in which, remembering the truth of emptiness, so this is not idol worship, we actually learn to manifest as a form of the divine. And that divine being can expand and fill the space and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so there's a way of contracting space and expanding space based on meditation. And there's also the result of even something as simple as the commanding position, where although the physical dimensions of a room don't change, your experience of possibility in that room, time to react, the ability to make the right judgment rather than to be overwhelmed by an input would also be well thought of as an expansion of space. Yeah. And as well, of course, tools like mirrors and issues of the movement path are related to this. Clutter has a very bad name in Feng Shui, but actually there are good and bad forms of clutter. One final tip for the audience. Yeah. If you cannot see what's on your desk, well, that's certainly not a good form of clutter. You'll overlook things. If your movement path is blocked, of course, your chi is blocked and you become more stuck. But on the other hand, clutter can represent the rich yeasty ferment of creative potential. And if properly utilized, the fecund dimension of appropriate clutter. Professor Lin once said, a real scholar's desk is different from a fake scholar's desk. So Architecture Digest compatible may not be the best Feng Shui because it may limit in its cleanliness or sterility the yeasty ferment of creative possibility we want to encourage. And I'm going to be talking about clutter, good and bad, in that context.
I love that. I love that. So you are the encyclopedia of Feng Shui.
To some degree, I'm aware of my limitations too.
We've only just scraped the surface. Do you have books that you've published where if we want to dive in and study more with you, we can study face-to-face, but also...
Sure. Well, I'm very proud of the Modern Book of Feng Shui. It's been in print, I'm not quite sure, more than 20 years. And you can certainly get it online, Kindle edition. The Modern Book of Feng Shui by Stephen Post is a very good guide. It's very accurate and it's very detailed. It is both a how-to guide, but it also contains so much practical knowledge and so few mistakes, maybe one or two little errors. It's largely perfect. And people often praise me for its clarity, which beginning to know me might seem strange, but I had a very good editor and it's still in print. So that would be one good source.
That's great. Then there's the Open Center. And I hope that we can have you teach more and more at the Open Center. We you are much needed in the world. And now we are a global home.
Yes, yes. And furthermore, at this point in my life, I have a heritage to transmit, not only as a lineage holder in
Mm.
Black Sectantric Buddhist Feng Shui, but in terms of all my studies in internal boxing, in shamanic studies, in the psychological domain. And I'm taking the standpoint that my master professor, Lin Yun, who left his body, as it were, in 2010, took toward the end of his career of not holding a lot back. So I'm looking forward to great opportunities of sharing really deep teachings so that I can leave this world with a feeling that I've given what I can give. And
Mm.
so I welcome what you suggest.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we will see you next on July. Let's see, we've got
July 9th.
3 Thursdays starting on July 9th and ending on July 30th from 3 until 5 p.m. Eastern time, which is 12 until 3 Pacific time
Yes.
in the US and other times around the world. And you'll be teaching more about using Feng Shui to create calm and to create thriving conditions during this COVID time.
Yes.
So that's
and to strengthen each individual in accord with their own wishes.
excellent. Beautiful. Thank you. So now you must tell us, where are you?
I am on a mountain just north of San Francisco in Marin County, California, known as Mount Tamalpais. Mount Tamalpais is a Kuan Yin-shaped mountain related to the goddess of mercy. She's known as the sleeping princess because her silhouette from 2 points of view across the East Bay and from the north looks like a recumbent female figure. And Mount Tamalpais's function is actually to receive enormous power, both directly and indirectly, from the geological formations, but also from the force that configurations have and can project, not contiguously by landform, but by just power. So Mount Tamalpais is a unique sacred mountain recognized as such. It's not a very tall mountain, but it's a very powerful one. And I'm literally 25 miles driving from my own home in San Francisco, which has on the 4th floor a lookout room and an altar room that looks somewhat like this fire lookout. And so some years the most active fire lookout in the world, although not for considerable time. And certainly a working lookout that is deeply involved in protecting the people of the Bay Area.
So are you a lookout for fires?
I am.
And how long
am.
have you been doing that for?
48 years, beginning in 1972. That's how I came to this mountain.
And what does that mean to be a lookout?
It's an art of soft, comprehensive awareness during which you see, in William Blake's phrase, not with, but through the eyes. And so you're looking really for what doesn't belong at that exact moment. You notice something that doesn't belong, and then you may have your binoculars to use and devices like a fire finder that I'm touching, a circular disc that rotates, of actually exactly in line with the Feng Shui compass. In the 70s, I had overlays of the Chinese Feng Shui compass that fit on top of the fire finder, and the 24 azimuthal compass directions of modern directionology are exactly the same as the Chinese 24 mountains, and so on. So it's an art of soft, comprehensive awareness. And then once we see something that doesn't belong, we determine, is it a smoke? And we have all kinds of tools, maps and grid systems and the fire finder and another lookout in Marin County. We can triangulate, and telephones and radios. And so 15 minutes after we end, I will be preparing my weather report and then going into service for an 8-hour day doing that.
Wow, 8 hours.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
And
were you hoping to share with us some of the view?
yes, indeed. Now, what I'd like to try to do, and we discussed this earlier, is I'm going to switch the Zoom meeting to my telephone, where I think I can more easily go outside and show you a little bit of what's around us.
Okay.
And share what has been the home of my heart. So I'm going to now, as soon as I'm on here, I'm waiting, and there I am. And
There you are.
very good. Very good. Excellent. So I'm going to close my computer
Oh,
and let's
there you are. You're
hopefully.
still there.
Okay, but I'm selecting join or audio.
Yeah.
Join audio. Here we are. Okay. Computer is closed, and can you hear me?
Yes. We can see you
Wonderful.
and hear you. Fantastic.
Okay. And so now we will step out onto the catwalk. And I'm not sure, I thought that on this device, I could just use the normal change camera dimension to switch the camera direction, but apparently it's not clear how I can do that. No immediate way of indicating that. So I'll just turn the camera from me to what you can see.
Okay.
So now we are looking towards San Francisco. I don't know. You'll have to give me some guidance because I'm just looking at the
It's
tiny
beautiful.
image.
Absolutely
And
beautiful.
a little bit of fog. And now we're facing east. This is the San Francisco Bay. And once again, I'm not quite sure what I'm showing you, but now moving on the catwalk to the northern direction. And now continuing to the west, beginning to show our viewers a little bit of the watershed of Marin County. Can you see some lakes in the distance?
Absolutely. We see
Okay.
beautiful lakes
and now we are on East Peak of Mount Tamalpais, and I'm attempting to show you, that's the parking lot, and I'm attempting to show you Middle Peak and West Peak. You may see a white ball, which is an FAA radar station, airline approach. And hopefully I am conveying a little bit of a 360-degree view of what may be seen. And I'll show you a little bit of the interior of the lookout as well, so that the viewers can get a sense for what a lookout may contain. So once again, entering the fire lookout, this is the Osborne Firefinder, the pointing device that I mentioned.
Okay.
And our collection of radios and telephones and the like, and I'll bring it back.
That's amazing. So you'll spend 8 hours. That's quite a long time to have that kind of focused attention.
It has to be very soft to be successful, because in theory, my standard is 360 degrees soft comprehensive awareness. And that certainly involves a degree of work, but also a little bit of softness and relaxation to be able to maintain that degree of concentration. In the military, lookouts with binoculars need to be changed every 15 minutes. And so how to stay soft and yet keep comprehensive awareness is the challenge.
Wow, that is amazing. You are our fearless leader. We thank you very much for teaching us all of that and
Yes,
watching our home.
My wife pointed out my Superman-like costume, the colors, but how each of us can be as super as we can be is the burden, and I hope the glory, of what I'm able to share in this class.
Wow. You are quite an inspiration. And I thank you so much for being with us from at the top of a mountain, for sharing everything that you've shared with us today. We look forward to seeing you at the Open Center. And for all of our viewers, if you go to opencenter.org, there is access to Stephen's blog and registration to the course. And thank you.
Thank you, Anna. It was inspiring with your eyes as we talked. Thank you very much.
So sweet. Thank you so much. Be safe and be well today, and see you everybody else at the Open Center.
Yes, indeed. And courage, strength, love and blessings to all the viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.